Passion Unchained here. I am really excited for this guest, for this interview. I do interviews here and there. It's not the only source of content on this channel, but when I have an interview with a guy like this, I'm really excited to give it to you. This is the second interview I've had. First interview, I was still learning how to interview people, and the quality, this is one thing you'll learn when you do something that you care about and that you do on a consistent basis. Your skill will rapidly increase, and my skill at interviewing has increased so much. He remarked on the interview and after the interview to me, he was like, yo, I had so much fun. I had a good time. Your skills as an interviewer have increased. Because the last time he was with me was over a year ago, probably a year and a half ago, maybe even 2 years ago. So I'm really excited to bring this to you. I think it was a year and a half ago. Really excited to bring this to you guys. Very pleased with this interview and how it came out. His name is Dr. Raghunathan. He's written a book called If You're So Smart, Why Aren't You Happy? He is a happiness researcher. Let me repeat that. He researches happiness, and he is an immensely interesting and intelligent guy, and I am very happy to bring you this interview where I ask him a lot about happiness and a lot about what makes you happy, how things like exercise fit into happiness, and what specifically, and things like social life fit into happiness. And it was really cool. He broke it down into 3 aspects. He broke it down into like how much people like you, how much people respect you, and something else I forgot. But we talk about it in the interview. It's a fascinating topic of conversation. We even go on to like, what does it mean to have a fulfilling work, to feel like you're productive and to feel like you're doing something that matches you. And that's what this whole channel is about. So, I mean, that could be another interview in and of itself down the line or something if we do this again, which I'm sure we will. At some point, maybe a year down the line or another year and a half, I'm sure Raj would be down for a third go to dive into that topic specifically or whatever makes sense at that moment. But I'm really happy with how this came out, and I'm grateful to Raj. I know he'll watch this, so I'm grateful to you for spending the time with me, and I'm excited for you to have the benefit of our conversation. So if you like this, please subscribe. Passion Unchained. I talk about how to live a life that is passionate and fulfilling, and do things that you love doing. Build it from the ground up so it's custom and fits you. And I'm excited. I'm really excited to bring this to you. I know I've said that so many times, but that's just because I feel a lot of gratitude for how well this interview went. Cheers, bye, and enjoy.
It's around the corner. So,
yeah, it's already here in a lot of ways.
it's already here?
Yeah, I was going to the gym earlier yesterday, and it was so hot.
Yeah, that's true. In the evening, it was pretty hot before it started raining after that.
Feel free to have as much water as you like, by the way.
Thank you. Very kind of you.
Yeah, of course. I've learned a few things in my day about talking for long periods of time. So last time you came here, I had a very unprofessional setup and didn't edit it well. And then the only comment I got on the video was that they liked you, but they think that it should have been edited better.
Really?
Yeah. Which is okay. I mean, people comment a lot of things, but to be honest, I didn't have the skills that I have now. So I'm happy. I'm really happy to have you back with with better equipment and better skills, you know. So for those who don't know you, Raj, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure. My name is Raj Raghunathan. By the way, I'm looking at the camera, looking at you.
Look wherever is comfortable.
Okay. Yeah, so my name is Raj Raghunathan. I'm a professor of marketing at the Macomb School of Business, and I do this unusual thing of teaching a class on happiness, both to the MBAs and to the undergrads. And not just that, I also teach happiness at other schools.
What other schools?
There's a couple of schools in India. I've been teaching at the Indian School of Business for about 10 years, and then now there's a new school that's starting up, management institution. It's called the Birla Institute of Technology and Sciences School of Management. So, you know, it's my alma mater.
Yeah.
Right, the same school, same university, if you will, is starting this management school, and so I'm really honored that they've invited me to come and teach. So,
I can imagine, yeah.
and of course, the online courses on happiness as well. I have 2 of them.
Yeah, on Udemy, there's a hugely popular one, right?
I don't know about the one on Udemy.
Okay.
I do know about one on Coursera that's really, I mean, maybe the most popular MOOC of all time. It's a course on happiness offered by Yale University.
And it's called the same title as your book, right?
Oh,
Or
the
is
one
it
that
different?
I'm offering?
Yeah.
Okay, so the one that I'm offering is not the one that I was talking about as
Okay.
the all-time. My course is also on happiness. It's pretty popular. It's got about 400,000 students. I mean, I'm not trying to be modest or
Sure.
anything like that.
You're just
you
being
know.
honest. Yeah.
Yeah, no, the thing is that other course has like 3 million people or something.
Yeah,
right? So
but
there's all,
400,000 is a lot. Like,
Yeah,
you're just trying to be
absolutely.
humble.
No.
But that makes you happier, doesn't it?
No, I mean, I'm not trying to be humble or anything.
Only 400,000.
400,000 is not a small number. I mean, it's a huge number. And
Yeah.
obviously, it's a hit. Very happy and proud of it. So, I'm not trying to be modest, like I said.
Sure.
But I wanted to put things in perspective. And it's not called, it's not got the same title as my
Okay.
book. My book is titled, If You're So Smart, Why Aren't You Happy? And the course is titled A Life of Happiness and Fulfillment.
Gotcha. Because you were like you're trying to like put it in perspective, as you say, and I like to call it being humble, but you can call it whatever you want. Is that help you be happy? Is that like, does research show that if you aren't so full of yourself, or like you don't always put yourself at the top, does that make you happier, or is that just something you like to do?
Right. So I don't know of any research that looks at this idea of so full of yourself and things like that. I think that the way that they would operationalize it is, do you humble brag, for example, right? Or do you kind of engage in comparing yourself to other people? And we know that those kinds of behaviors aren't very good for happiness. So yeah, I mean, by the same token, though, I don't think that you necessarily want to undersell yourself either, because
Sure.
I think that people often may not have information about who you are and what you do and everything, and so you got to kind of state the facts,
Yeah.
about what you do, and so.
Yeah.
That opens doors, that invites people to kind of ask you lead up questions to which you can answer and give them the full information. I guess the important thing here is not to tether your self-esteem or your self-worth to how you perceive yourself relative to other people. So long as you sever that link, and then I think that the chances that you actually engage in boasting obviously come down, but you also wouldn't necessarily want to undersell yourself, because it doesn't matter as much what other people think of you, and relative to how you stack up to other people. You're not trying to boast, you're not trying to undersell, you're just trying to, just be honest and authentic.
And there's a lot of use to being perceived as an expert if you are an expert. It's like, if you were just like, oh yeah, like, I don't know, like I kind of research happiness and, there's a lot of better people out there and that's all you said, then nobody would want to take a course.
yeah, probably, yeah, that's true. So you do want to...
I mean, they would because of your charisma, of course.
Well, yeah, I mean, I do think that if you kind of constantly undersold yourself, then you probably don't have a lot of charisma, right? Why would you do that? I mean, why would you constantly undersell yourself?
Yeah.
I think that either because at some level you lack confidence, or because you kind of erroneously believe that is what is going to please other people. So it is, again, strategically a move in order to get other people to like you. And that also smacks a little bit of inauthenticity and stuff.
And notice the people that really self-deprecate are the people that don't need to. And it's like, if you listen to Joe Rogan's podcast, he constantly is like, oh yeah, I'm just stupid, and blah, blah, blah. Obviously he's not stupid, he's quite a smart man, but it's almost like he's doing that to make the other person in the conversation feel comfortable being smart. And I think like there is utility to downplaying yourself a little bit. Like a lot of comedians do that when like intermittently with super offensive jokes, and that way it's like, oh, okay, I can't get mad at him because he's also making himself a target.
Right.
But when you're doing it to like maybe to make other people feel better, well, they might feel better, but they're not going to respect you in any way, shape, or form. So it's like, it's a balance between like, how much can I make other people feel comfortable, but also how much, like, I also need to maintain some sense of respect and some sense of like, I value myself in this situation. You can't walk over me, you know?
Yeah, I think that's an important balance. I think that maybe in certain kinds of professions, like if you're a stand-up comedian, it's okay, but as a kind of an expert in a field, as a researcher, as a professor. By the way, totally different topic.
Sure.
But
go ahead.
My stomach just growled because it's hungry.
I have...
No, I don't want anything.
Okay.
I just started intermittent fasting 2 days ago, and today's my 3rd day. And I'm just wondering if that is going to...
Congratulations.
That is going to be...
I will make sure to make it super loud so that people listening to it can be inspired to fast themselves.
You can kind of selectively tune up and tune down certain buttons?
No, I won't listen. I won't do it. Like if it was like at your stomach, maybe.
Okay.
So I know that you've been you're doing a lot of stuff when it comes to fitness, and obviously intermittent fasting is part of that. Is there, like, why intermittent fasting?
So here's the thing, okay? I have actually started to put on quite a bit of weight. You know, overall, I'm a kind of a slim guy,
yes,
right? But quite a bit of weight around my midriff, and you can actually see it. The camera can't because it's hidden under the table. And so you know that I contacted you maybe a couple of months ago because I was impressed at the photographs you had put up.
Thank you.
Right? I mean, you're kind of toned your body, and especially your midriff, you know, good for you. So I wanted to see, you know, what are you doing? And you gave me good advice. And it was a little bit difficult for me to follow that advice, partly because, you know, I live, obviously, you know, when you're living with other people, I live with my family, and there's cooking happening all the time, right? And different kinds of dishes are being made, and it's super difficult for me to kind of stay focused on what I want to eat. And you know, I obviously want to eat more. If anybody wants to lose weight, you want to eat more protein, less simple carbs, right? And try and avoid junk food and all. It's a little more difficult, as opposed to, I'm not saying that, you know, it's not impressive that you've done it living alone, but it's just a little bit easier to do it alone.
Yeah, there's challenges for everybody, different challenges.
Exactly.
Sure.
And so the one thing that I discovered with intermittent fasting, I'm going to, you know, assess and see where it gets me. I don't want to lose weight overall. I just want to kind of like redistribute it.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
So we'll see what it does. There's a chance that it works and it's good, but there's also a chance that it actually kind of makes me lose weight in the wrong places. Right?
It's possible.
So, yeah.
Have you been working out?
No, that's the other thing, that it's compounded it. The thing that happened is that, you know, this part of my elbow, especially my right hand.
You were saying something about your elbow, yeah.
Was I telling you earlier?
Yeah, I believe, yeah.
Yeah, so it's called the golfer's elbow, okay? So I got it, and it's either because of overuse or a combination of that and wrong form. When
form is important, yeah.
Form is super important, right? And I always believe that I maintain good form. I'm not one of those guys that, you know, wants to kind of lift heavier weights for the sake of it, right? I mean, I want to do it maintaining form, but obviously sometimes your technique is not right and you don't even know it.
Yeah.
Which is why I think hiring somebody as a trainer is great, right? If you can afford
100%.
it.
Yeah, you need that feedback. Like I'm probably fucking up my deadlift. I guarantee you, because I was working out with my friend. I visited him in Portland. And I'm actually going to release that vlog right before this one. And we were doing deadlifts, and he's like, "Oh, hold on a second. You're putting all the weight on your back." And here I am working out alone. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm doing perfect form. Like I'm protecting my back, and he's showing me, he's like, yeah, no, dude, like your back, you're putting all the weight on your back, and that's not healthy. I'm like, ooh, damn, I didn't realize that. So that external person looking at you in the moment is really important.
Absolutely, yeah. So I probably did something wrong or overused it, or a combination of the two, and it ended up being this way. And the thing is that this is a kind of a repeat injury, you know. So I've had this in the past, and that time it lasted me like a year and 2 months, or a year and 3 months, you know. So I kind of nipped it in the bud this time, but nevertheless, even this time it's been, you know, I'm not really pushed myself or even really kind of worked out my upper body for about 3 months now. So I've been focusing only on my lower body, but
it's still good though, because those are big muscles.
Yeah.
If you do squats, you can still do squats with like because you're not really using your hands, and those are big muscles. So a lot of people will say like it's not super important to if you're looking for looks to physically develop them, but the fact that you're working out such a big muscle adds a lot of muscle mass, which ups your calorie burn, and then it also will add a lot of testosterone to your bloodstream, which helps with everything when it comes to muscle growth and fat loss. So that's one good thing about focusing on your lower body is it will do both of those things, and it will get you what you want ultimately.
Yeah, it's just that it's a little bit boring.
Sure.
To only work out the lower half. And here's the irony of it is that when I was doing both upper body and lower body, I'd actually kind of go to the gym, say 5 days a week on average. Okay. And I kind of alternate upper and lower. But when I do only lower, you would think that I'd go for 2.5 days, 3 days a week, right? But I end up going for 1.5, 2 days a week. I think this just, I don't know what it is. I mean, I think that I need to feel
what if
the sense
you worked on your core? I mean, a lot of people are saying you don't need to work on your core, but if it means you'll go to the gym a couple more days, that might be good, and that will be less boring.
Yeah, so what I do is, and I just, again, with the intermittent fasting, I started this routine where in the morning I do a kind of obliques and muffin top kind of exercise. That's what it's called.
Okay.
But
it's just funny name for it.
Yeah, obliques and muffin. So her name is Pamela Rife.
Okay.
She's awesome.
Cool.
She's got a great physique, obviously, but also she
better if she's teaching it.
Right. So a lot of people who do this have a great physique, but there's also levels within that, and I think I really like her body type or something.
Nice.
She's just kind of. I guess it's partly because she's also slimish, and so I can see myself in her. In
similar like metabolism.
Something like that, or like bone structure. Or something.
Yeah.
But she also doesn't break a sweat at all.
Wow.
So she does a 10-minute thing, and you're like huffing and puffing and barely able to get through it. I mean, you meaning me, right?
Sure.
I mean,
I might too.
Yeah, you might too. I mean, you're obviously fitter and younger and everything, so you probably won't. But it's just impressive what she pulls off. Anyway, so I do that in the morning, more or less as soon as I wake up, and then if I go to the gym, this is why everything rides on the gym, right?
Yeah.
If I go to the gym, then I come back and I do a kind of a more basic set of crunches and stuff for the core. So your point is a good one.
One thing that I don't mean to interrupt, but one thing that really helps me go to the gym, have you heard of this idea? There's also another book called The Compound Effect. It's the same thing essentially. And also the habit books are similar.
Right, like what is that with James Clear, right? Atomic Habits.
Exactly. Yeah, there's slightly different points in them, but there's the 1% rule in Atomic Habits is the same thing essentially as a slight edge, where you just do a little bit. And one thing that I would do, I'm pretty motivated to go to the gym now, but there were times where I wasn't, and when I wasn't, I would just be like, okay, I just have to go to the gym.
Yeah,
and then I can go home.
Yeah,
and so like maybe if. At the worst case scenario, if you feel like super unmotivated, then you could just go to the gym, park, get out of the car, and get back in and go home.
Yeah,
and at least that keeps the habit,
Yeah, absolutely. And I've done that sometimes.
Okay.
Obviously, not precisely that, right?
Sure.
I mean, I would go to the gym, even though I wasn't feeling motivated. And sometimes I am, but I go in and then I discover in the first 15 minutes it's not on today, for whatever reason. I give myself a break and say it's fine.
It's more important to keep the habit than to go all out. I mean, I personally would, at least for myself, I would push myself to maybe even lower the weights and then complete the workout.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, I mean, it's still a great thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The other thing that I do too that I think is good for motivating myself is I come back and I write in my journal every day.
Oh, great.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's one habit that I've kept for a long time now.
That's great.
And then when I go to the gym, I do make it a point to kind of say that, give myself a little bit of a pat on the back for doing that.
Yes. Have like a reward. I buy myself a protein bar or a kombucha, something that's healthy for me whenever I do something that's good for me. I want to bring it back to happiness, of course, because I have you here, and it would be stupid if we just talked all about fitness this whole time. So let's tie it into happiness, because obviously exercise is good for happiness, but I'm sure you know the research on that, and I'm curious if you could speak to that. It's a super broad question, so answer it however you like.
Yeah, so, right. Happiness is very important for, exercise is very important for happiness.
Yeah.
And there's many different ways in which it is good for your happiness. One of the things that it obviously does is that it makes you a healthier person, right? And you look better eventually, right? I mean, maybe it's not
Takes
immediate.
time, yeah.
But what happens immediately, though, is that you do feel more confident and there is a boost in your mood. That happens when you exercise. You know, even a 20-minute medium intensity routine can improve your mood that lasts for 12 hours.
Wow. Okay.
Which is why if you could
Improve
pick any
your
time
mood in like stability or like level or both or.
Yeah. So you feel more positive.
Okay.
For up to 12 hours.
Nice.
Right. So if somebody were to kind of ask you how you're doing on a 10-point scale, right? 1 being miserable, 10 being ecstatic.
Yeah.
And maybe normally it would be a 7, let's say. But if you exercise, then it could be a 7.5 or something, right? I mean, it's not like you kind of, go to the 10, go to a 10, but it is significant,
Nice.
I mean, you're talking about 1%, this adds, something.
And everybody that does it increases on average like a
little
certain
bit.
number, yeah.
That's still pretty good.
Sure.
So that's the idea. So, that's why they say that if you can choose any time of the day to exercise, probably the morning is the best because then you're not sleeping through that good mood, right? If you work out in the evening.
Makes
Which
sense.
is still good, but not as good as, when you're interacting with others, positive mood helps you kind of,
And people want to work with people that are positive.
Exactly,
People want to be friends with people that are positive. People want to date people that are positive. It's
Absolutely,
like you have more opportunities. Like I notice when I'm in a bad, even when I'm in a bad mood, but I don't say anything because I don't want to say anything bad. Like people seem to be like, oh, let me stay away from him.
Yeah. People can sense it. I think they have the radars out. So that's one, and then it increases blood flow to your brain, which makes you kind of focus better. So it's not directly happiness, but to the extent that happiness depends on how productive you felt.
Sure.
Right? Which most people do feel more happy if they feel
Yeah,
that.
especially in Western societies.
Yeah, we have a high level of this productivity orientation, right? Getting things accomplished. You can also remember stuff better when you exercise. Yeah.
Okay. Does it matter if it's like cardio or weightlifting? Does that make a difference?
Yeah. So I think that cardio is better for many of these things.
For the mood stuff.
Yeah, you need to get your heart pumping, basically, right? And cardio is generally better at it.
Sure.
But you can achieve that even with just weight training. I think that it's difficult not to have some element of cardio in weight training.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So I have it's under my shirt, but I have a fitness tracker. It's on 24/7 and also tracks my sleep. There's been studies by the University of Arizona, the Whoop strap. I don't know if you know about it.
Yeah, I think you had mentioned it. So you say 24/7. You don't have to charge it?
No. So you do have to charge it. It's really cool. Let me see if I have the battery right here. See, I moved everything's usually on that table. Here it is. So the battery, I wish I could show you. It's just under my shirt. The battery, so I charge this, and then I slip this on, and then it charges that, and then I take it off. So it's on my wrist even when it's charging, because this is like a proxy charger, I guess you could say. And so it is on 24/7.
Wow.
I don't have to take it off while I shower, but I do, just because it's just, I don't know, more convenient or whatever. And the University of Arizona, because it tells you your sleep stages like REM and deep sleep, they had it independently tested on the accuracy, and they compared it with polysomnography, and it was quite accurate. It wasn't like as accurate as polysomnography, but it was actually pretty close on how accurate it would detect your sleep stages. So like I have this for my sleep as well, and I can also tell, coming back to the thing we were talking about, how weight training can up your heart rate. Yeah, like I can see my heart rate go like pretty high up when I'm doing weight training. It's kind of neat.
Yeah. Especially when your core is moving vertically, right? I mean, when you're doing squats, for example.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that really elevates your pulse rate.
Interesting. Is there a reason for that? Like a mechanical reason or a physiological reason? Or
I think it's just there's just more kind of movement of the center of gravity, and I think means that you're having to work harder.
That makes sense. Like a lot of different muscles have to keep you stable. Real quick, I'm just going to double check to make sure everything's recording.
Sure.
I've gotten a lot better at making sure things are recording, but I also... fudge crackers. Yeah, we're perfect. I'm just going to restart this because every 30 minutes, it hasn't been 30 minutes yet, but every 30 minutes it resets. What's your hard out, by the way? Just want to make sure we don't...
What's my what?
Hard out.
Oh, I see. Okay. Let's say 11:15.
Cool. Sounds good. So talking about sleep, I've noticed that when my sleep is not good, I am consistently every single time I am less emotionally stable, more impulsive, and less like I feel worse. And also physically too. And when my sleep is good, it's the opposite. Like I am consistently like more emotionally even, more like a better mood, and physically I feel good. And I'm curious. I mean, that's kind of obvious, but like, do you have any? Do you know any like the research between like happiness and sleep? How does that work?
Oh yeah, it's super important. So all three components of a healthy lifestyle, right? In my classes, I talk about them as being the foundation of a happy life. You can't really aspire to be happy if you're not leading a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah.
And one component obviously is moving and exercising, right? Which we already talked about. Sleep is a huge component of it. It's a three-legged stool, right? I mean, all three are important, but if I had to pick one, I would say probably sleep is the most important, just because I think we are a very sleep-deprived society, and especially the target audience that I'm talking to, which is business people, right? And it's bad, right, with them. I mean, they get like barely 4 or 5 hours of sleep every night on average. They might actually be in bed for longer, but the quality sleep that they get is not so good, partly because they're carrying a lot of stress from the workday into the bed, and so it takes them a while to fall asleep, and then they wake up and it takes them a while to fall asleep again, back again, and so on. Anyway, so there's just a lot of research showing that sleep is super important for us. There's lots of things happening without your awareness that is super useful and important for achieving some kind of a closure on the day's events, right? Lots of things happening, and your dreams usually incorporate some of those things and achieve some kind of a story or a narrative about those things.
Even if it's weird.
Even if it's weird. But that is important for your subconscious brain to kind of close out that chapter so that you can begin afresh again.
So that's REM sleep. REM sleep is like restorative for the mind. So that's what I've heard is REM is restorative for the mind, and SLS, slow something sleep, is restorative for the body. Is that correct?
That I don't know.
Okay.
So I'm not like a sleep expert or anything like that, but I do know that there's a few reasons why it's super important for your mood.
Yeah, because you're an expert on mood and happiness, and of course sleep goes into that.
Exactly, right. And it also kind of like when you're sleeping, it pushes out a lot of the toxins that your brain has been collecting over time. And so that's another very important reason. And so when it pushes all those things out, your brain is obviously healthier and is functioning better. It can remember details more, and you can focus on your work a little bit more the next day, and so on.
There's like this physical sensation I get in my head when I don't sleep well, and then a very different physical sensation I get when I do sleep well, and it's like there's just stuff, there's like gunk in there. Like it just feels like, you can feel like everything's just turning slowly.
Exactly. It's like having a hangover, right?
Yeah.
But not quite as painful perhaps. But
I've only had a hangover once. I've only had a hangover once.
Wow, good for you.
Yeah, I also don't drink that much.
Okay, nice.
But,
I mean, that's a good habit to have, not to drink too much.
Does that have to do, what does drinking do to happiness?
That's a good question,
I'm just going to be, what does this do for happiness? What does that do for happiness?
Sure. Yeah, so, here I think that maybe I'm going to deviate a little bit from what some of the research has shown because of personal experience. But in general, I think that drinking is not good, which I agree with. But I do also know from personal experience that, a couple of drinks, certainly, right, not more, but a couple can make you feel more relaxed and disinhibit you. And so if you're a kind of a stuck-up person by nature, which as it turns out I'm not, right? But even for me, it just makes me a little more spontaneous. Now, I think there's a little bit of an interaction with your personality. For some people, 100%. I think what might happen is that disinhibition might manifest itself as more aggressiveness or just saying inappropriate things.
Yeah.
But for many other people, it actually makes them just a little bit funnier and a little bit more lighthearted. They don't take themselves as seriously, and they're not as offended when other people poke fun at them. They're able to kind of give it back and engage in a little bit of a banter. And all of that is important for happiness, right? Because our social life is super important for us to be happy.
Is that the third leg on the stool? Social life?
No, I was that stool. So there's few stools here.
Okay, few stools. Gotcha.
Yeah, the healthy lifestyle stool has exercising, sleeping well, and eating well.
Okay.
Eating is the third stool.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm sorry, we're jumping all around here, and
no, it's fine.
I'm not really asking super focused questions.
No,
but
it's good.
So social life is also important, and that. What if there's a social life stool? What would the 3 legs on that one be?
I never answered that question before, but now that I think about it, I do think that for your social life to be good, you need to feel loved or liked. I think that's very important. You need to feel trusted, right? And you need to feel respected.
Yeah, 100%.
And those maybe would be the three kind of legs.
That's interesting. I thought you were going to say something like, have variety of interactions, but like I like this like that's interesting because it is. Because when I feel liked, like for instance, my friend was like, "Hey, let's rent a party boat for Memorial Day," and so he was like, "Okay, everybody, like let's all like chip in for this." And he was like, "Joe, I want you to be the photographer because I've been getting into photography. I don't know, you've probably seen that, right?"
Yeah, I saw some photographs.
Yeah, so I'm like, "Joe, like I want you to be the photographer for this party," and I'm like, "Cool." And he he hired me. Like I didn't have to pay what everyone else paid. I didn't pay anything for the boat just because like I was doing things. He essentially hired me, and that made me feel like appreciated. Like I felt really like I was like, oh, he likes me. He appreciates my skill, and he also likes me enough to like ask me to do this. And then also at the same time, I felt respected because it's like, well, he sees and trusted because it's like he didn't really follow up a bunch. He just like trusted that I'd bring my camera. And so it was kind of cool how that in like one action I felt liked, I felt respected, and I felt trusted.
Right. Yeah, and in order for you to feel that way, obviously you then have to also, there's some onus on you to do things that elicits that kind of response from other people. And so you got to behave well, or, quote unquote, behave well.
Sure.
So, be kind, for example, be compassionate and be accountable, right? If you say that you're going to be at a meeting at 10 a.m., then, show up at 10, right?
Yeah.
And so that will gain, respect, and also trust, right? And when you deliver the things that you said you would, right, over time, then people understand that, okay, I can trust this guy, right? He's going to do this. Or
and respect
step up.
him when he says something.
Exactly. So all of those things are super important, not just obviously for friendships, but perhaps even more importantly for, significant relationships. Yeah. Right? If you don't have a sense of liking, and liking is one of those weird things where it depends on your personality. Of course, there are some people who are liked by many people, right? But I do think that some people like it when somebody jokes around a lot or, doesn't take anything too seriously. Other people might actually find it irritating. And so...
They're like, you're not taking this serious enough.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Everybody's got that a little bit, but, in general, there are a bunch of people who like people who are just kind of, shooting the breeze, and even if they're doing serious things, don't take themselves too seriously. And other people actually find that to be somewhat irritating. That, look, I mean, we're dealing with serious things here. I don't want you to be laughing and joking around, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
There's a thing, I don't know if you know Mark Manson. He's a
he actually came and guest lectured in my class.
Oh, nice.
A couple of years ago, yeah.
Yeah, I know he was doing some, what do you call it, some... talks. My brother went to a talk in Davis at the Mondavi Center by him apparently like a long time ago. I'm a big fan of his books, and he's a very smart guy and great writer as well. And he did this thing where he emailed his whole mailing list. He's like, okay, people who've been in long-term relationships, I want you to like answer these questions for me so that we can I can help figure out like what makes long-term relationships work. And he found out that, like I think like 100,000 plus people, like couples messaged him. And the one factor that was consistent was that they respected each other. And that's what kept them together. I mean, it was an informal study. Like, it's obviously doesn't hold up to like scientific journal level of things. But he saw that the common thread very clearly was mutual respect. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, there's a guy called John Gottman who does a lot of work on relationships. And one of the kind of interesting things there that I remember is that trust is very, very important, okay? And that's kind of related to respect, but maybe slightly different as well. And a couple of other interesting things that come out of it is that in the relationships that really work, it's not as if there's no fighting or bickering or quarreling, but what differentiates it from the relationships that fail is that people really genuinely celebrate each other's successes. So it's not so much what happens when bad things happen, right? Every couple will argue, even the atheist ones. But when good things happen, does the other person say, I'm so happy for you?
That's so cool.
And really celebrate it, right?
Yeah.
As if it happened to them.
That's cool. So it's the compersion.
It's a what?
Compersion.
Compersion?
It's a word that's often used. It doesn't have to be used this way. It's often used in like context of like polyamorous relationships, but it just means that your happiness is my happiness. Like I feel your happiness.
That's a good word.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah.
Compersion. Okay. I guess you could call it empathy or
sure.
And the other kind of really cool finding here,
I'm just checking to make sure if I switch it over or not. Yeah.
Sure. Is that when there is a violation of trust, right? Let's say that it can even be a simple thing like, you said that you do this, put the garbage out. And I come home and I expect it to be done and it wasn't done, right? So I trusted you to do this and now you're not done it and now the garbage has to wait for another week. Right? Or something like that. Then it turns out that it takes 5 times as many experiences of trustworthy behavior for the other person to kind of now realize that you've come back to being a trustworthy person.
So a non-trustworthy. So if I break trust, it's as dense as like 5 like trust fulfilling activities.
Exactly. So the negativity outweighs positive
Yeah.
behavior a lot, right? Especially when it comes to trust, which is very, very important in relationships, right? So you got to kind of like be a very trustworthy person for you to be forgiven once in a while. And obviously, different kinds of violations of trust have different weights. So if it's like, infidelity, right, then that's probably never going to be forgiven in many relationships, right?
That also, the gravity of the situation is also important.
Exactly.
But for equal situations,
yeah,
that
equal
1 to 5
situations,
thing.
1:5 ratio, which is kind of interesting, Yeah,
that is interesting. I mean, it makes sense because when it comes to trust, it's not so much. It's like, do you rely on them, and it's more important to know if they will let you down than whether. I don't know. I'm trying to rationalize it, but it makes sense.
Why 5-1? You mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that we just tend to have a general negativity bias. It's called, and so this is just a translation of that into this context.
Sure.
But in general, we tend to notice things that are negative, and negative things have a bigger psychological impact on us, which is unfortunate because we want to be happy.
Sure.
That's not the right way to be if you want to be happy. But it did help us back in the day when we were roaming the savannas of Africa or dwelling in caves to have this negativity orientation because. If you fail to notice a tiger in the corner of your eye, right, and you're going after all these juicy, low-hanging fruit on trees, you'd probably get devoured, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you'd be eaten alive. And so, for survival, negativity bias is a good thing, but
Makes
not
sense.
for flourishing, not for thriving, not for being happy. So it turns out that the rules of the game have changed, and we don't really need to fight for survival anymore. Many of us. And yet we have this kind of vestige or baggage of negativity bias from our evolutionary past that we need to now consciously kind of get rid of or at least mitigate. Completely getting rid of it is also not good because we do face situations in which somebody might be untrustworthy.
There's a lot of social ostracization. Like in modern day world, like social ostracization is probably the worst thing that would happen. And that is pretty bad. Like it's not crazy. I actually just got kicked out of a social group for silly reasons. But thankfully, I had like the mental habits to be able to work through it and be like, you know what, like it's going to make you more resilient. Like it's going to, I think that like honesty with myself was important. I was like, it's going to suck. You're not going to feel happy. I wasn't like, yay, sunshine and rainbows. This is the best thing that happened to you. I'm like, well, no, it's not a good thing. And you're going to feel shitty, but at the same time, it's going to make you more resilient. And it's going to give you like a deeper relationship with yourself. It's going to give you a new opportunity to find a different group. And it just, in the end, like, it's not the best thing that happened to me, but it really wasn't that big of a deal at all.
Yeah, good.
And I'm curious, like, so obviously, like, ignoring negativity, ignoring the negative things that happen can be a good thing, but often it's just like you're just lying to yourself. But at the same time, you have to say things that boost you up. Where's like that line between being too positive and just lying to yourself, but also not just being like so negative and pessimistic?
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, I think that you can start with the fact that we have this negativity bias, right? And understanding why we have it. And I just told you why we have it, because we are the offsprings of people who survived in the past, and they had negativity bias, which increased their chances of surviving and therefore producing children, and we are their offspring, and that's why we have it. And once you recognize it, then you ask yourself the question, is it still useful? And the answer to that for most of us most of the time is no, because it brings our mood down for unnecessary reasons, right? So for example, you throw a party and everybody loves it, but this one person says, you could have been a little more friendly. I felt excluded. Yeah. Then your mind is kind of, ruminating on that one person's negative experience all the time, right? You don't want that. On average, it went great. Okay, and you just say to this person, I'm really sorry, I didn't know that, otherwise I would have corrected it. But hopefully next time, I'll make sure that you feel more included, and just forget about it after that, right? Because it's not doing you any good by constantly thinking about it, and it starts to affect your behavior with that person now, and with other people now, and you change yourself, and you're now more kind of caring, but it's all inauthentic, and you've lost your kind of zest and fun for life. So you don't want that. And so most of us have to correct in that direction of letting go of that negativity bias and becoming a little more positive, and it's a difficult thing to do. Yes. So, I don't think that most of us need to worry about becoming delusional and Pollyanna-ish and more like overly positive. I don't think that there is much danger of that happening. Okay. Because the negativity bias is so strong that it's going to keep you rooted to negativity, right? And you have to very, very slowly but consciously kind of ease it. And you'll know that your life is improving as a result. Okay, and if you reach the point where you're becoming delusional, there are so many corrective mechanisms in life that will tell you that, hey, you've gone too far. Other people will tell you. Like I told you some time back that if somebody's like always joking and always lighthearted, other people don't like it as much. Some people don't like it as much. But even your close friends will tell you, hey, dude, relax. This is the time to get sick. You've lost your passport, okay? We got to kind of like get our.
It's not just everything will be okay. You're in Colombia, you've lost your passport. You got to get home.
Exactly. Right. And the flight is like 4 hours away. This is the time to be serious. And you'll know it when, the life will give you kind of hints.
Sure, like go to the embassy. Yeah, like that. There was. I'm just going to cycle the camera again, just because it's running up on 30 minutes. It's actually a very silly and funny reason why it does that. Actually, it's not so much, but I'll just be extra careful. There's a negativity bias again. But Canon apparently in Europe, I think, video cameras are taxed much higher than photo cameras, and so they cap the video length at 30 minutes so that it can be classified as a photo camera. And I thought that was interesting. I'm like, okay, that's a silly reason, but it makes sense.
Okay, but they sell the same ones in the US. We don't have that in the US, right?
Maybe it's just cheaper. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's also in the US too. There's some higher tax somewhere about video cameras versus photo cameras.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. I heard this one thing from fuck, why did I forget his name? He's like a controversial Toronto psychology professor.
Jordan
Peterson. Yeah. How did I not remember his fucking name? That's crazy. He's saying something about how creative people, like, they almost need to create or they feel like something's wrong. Like I'm definitely that way. Like if I don't make things, if I don't create things, like either photography or with my hands or something, there's not one of his controversial things he said, obviously. It's like he has other things he said that are controversial, but it's just like I feel like something's wrong, and I feel like I have to. Like it's just something's off if I don't do that. And is there like I'm curious, like obviously that has to do with happiness, right? And for other people, it's like for certain things, he also said that agreeable people need to be in a relationship. And if they're not in a relationship, then like something feels weird, something feels off. And I definitely feel like I'm in that camp of creative people where I have to be making something. If I hadn't made something with my hands or like visually specific, for me specifically, it's visual art, whether it's a physical object or a digital object. I just get all weird. Like I need to make things. Is there like something with everybody, or is that like very specific? Or
I think there's at least a couple of things going on here, right? I think that what you're calling creativity, other people might call it productivity orientation, which we already talked about a little bit, right? I think that people need to feel that they've achieved something in the day, that their time has been used well, and they've not just frittered it away. Okay, so for example, when I go on vacations, right, I'm a kind of a bimodal kind of a guy, I think, when it comes to vacations. So if I go to a place that has a lot of culture and history and museums and walking tours and stuff like that, I feel like I've wasted my day if I'm not doing those things.
Sure.
Okay. Even on a vacation, right?
Yeah.
I want to know that I've spent the time well.
Yeah, you don't go to Rome and not go to the Colosseum.
Yeah, exactly, right? And not just not go to the Colosseum, but even going to the Colosseum with a guide, with an understanding of what happened there in the past, and learning something. Now it's another matter that I might forget it the next day, but in the moment I want to feel like I've learned. And so I don't know whether you would call that need for creativity. Probably not, right? But it is kind of the same thing of I want to know that I have kind of used my time well. Okay. And so there's definitely that element to it. And then there's another element to it, which I think kind of gets at this creative angle a little bit more, which has to do with this idea that you need to feel that your kind of inner set of strengths or aptitudes are being used.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
and so different
sense.
people have different set of aptitudes, and some people might be like sporty and athletic, and they feel like caged if they don't get to kind of sweat and play a game of basketball or something. Other people might be musically gifted. Still others might really love learning new things and reading a book or something, and they feel like a little bit off if they don't get a chance to do it. So I think that angle to it. Now there's a good book. It's called The Element. It's by a guy called Ken Robinson. He's a British gentleman who was knighted, so he's called Sir Ken Robinson. Anyway, so in the Element, he talks about how the intersection of two circles is very, very important when you're trying to figure out what you should do for your life, right? And those two circles are, what am I good at, right? And the other circle is, what do I enjoy?
Oh, so it's similar to the Ikigai, but a little more simple.
Well, yes. I mean, it's only got those two circles, right?
Sure,
With
not
the
the
Ikigai,
four.
you also have, what does the world need, and where will I get paid the big bucks?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, but, part of his point is that if you start at the intersection of those two circles where you are in your element, and that's why it's called the element, you're in your element when you're doing things that you love to do and you're good at it, right?
Yep. Like for me, that's photography.
Yeah.
Or any visual aspect where I'm creating something visual. It's interesting because my whole life I've loved to do visual things and I've always been good at it. And I have like my art around the house. It makes me very happy.
You did these things?
Yeah. So that girl that's made
wow.
of wood. I didn't draw her, but I lasered her. I cut everything and I designed the 3D schematic. It's actually really cool. If you take it out of the wall, you can push out the inner part and then put in another photo that I would make. And I made that all happen. I put the resin on top. I also did I drew the girl up there. And then
It's pretty good.
Thanks. I made that hand too. That's next to the door.
Oh, the one that hit you on the head?
Yeah. That where I put my keys and stuff. And there's another drawing, and I have some drawings up the stairs and
Nice.
paintings around the house. Yeah. I love doing art and stuff, and it just instantly it puts me in that flow state, if you will. And that's a huge happiness thing
Absolutely,
too.
yeah.
It's like It's like explain the flow state to me, because
Sure, yeah, I was going to talk a little bit about it anyway. So when you kind of like are in your element, what happens is that you get lost in an activity, right? Whatever's in your element. So time seems to have this kind of weird paradoxical thing where in the moment it slows down and you're super aware of everything that's going on, but when that flow experience is over, you're wondering how all the time passed by.
Yeah.
So, and then you're not doing an activity for the sake of impressing other people when you're in a flow state. You're doing it for the activity's sake, right?
Yeah.
So you're truly intrinsically motivated and absorbed by it, rather than doing it for the sake of gaining appreciation of other people. And the irony is that the more you're in a flow state, the more you're going to get appreciated by other people, and actually being
100%.
distracted by wanting to be appreciated kind of disrupts and interrupts the flow state.
That makes sense. Yeah, it's almost like if you don't need it, it will come.
Yeah, exactly.
That's 100% accurate. When I first came to Austin, I took my shot at making a bookbinding business where I would journal.
Yeah, you gave me a journal. I used it.
Oh, I'm glad you liked
I
it.
journaled, right? And so maybe we talked about it, and that's why you gave it to me. But anyway, I used it.
I'm
And
glad
it's
you liked
really
it.
really cool because it
Thanks.
had all these like a collage of different kind of clippings and things like
Sure.
that on the cover. You gave me actually 2 journals.
Yeah, I remember I did,
Yeah.
I'm glad you liked it. So I was actually quite successful for what it was. It's just, it wasn't scalable. Even when I've sold several journals for $100 each. And the same exact journals I gave you. And those, it still takes like 5 or 6 hours to make one.
Yeah.
And even when I simplified it and changed the process to make it easier, it still took like 4 hours to make them, or like 3 hours if I was really quick. But like 3 hours for $100 each, and then I also have to spend time selling them, and it wasn't scalable in any way, shape, or form. So it didn't turn into a business. But at one point, I was my business plan was to wholesale them to a gift shop, and I got this order from the gift shop. It was actually the Recycled Reads, part of the library, the gift shop in the library. And I was working at the hackerspace at the time, and they had like a bunch of stuff, and like it was a 24-hour place. You'd go in and use their equipment, and I would just get so lost that I would like get there maybe at like noon, and I'd work past the last bus at like midnight. And then then the next bus was at 6 a.m. So then I'd work until like 4 a.m.
Wow.
Yeah, I'd be like, because I had to like make these journals. I was like, I'll give you, I think it was like 15 journals. So that took like a whole week to make those 15 journals, even in an assembly line fashion. And like at one point I hired somebody to help me out. It was pretty crazy. And I lost money doing it. It was not scalable. But like I didn't care. Like I was living the time of my life, getting like 0 sleep and working literally 100-hour weeks to make a couple $100. But I just loved it so much because I was like, I like lost all. I was like, wait, what? It's like 6 hours later. I thought it was like I just blinked. It's crazy. That flow state's kind of magical.
Yeah.
What gets you in a flow state?
A few things. Writing a paper, working on the theory part of a paper, it gets me to flow state. Analyzing data gets me in a flow state. So lots of research-oriented things. Obviously, putting together a
Shocker that
presentation.
you're a professor.
Yeah. So I think that I got lucky. I guess the book element talks about how a lot of the people in the world are not really working in a job that is in their element, and so it's not a surprise that they don't like it, right? But they stuck because it pays the bills, and that's all they've done, and so they just have to continue doing it, even though they're miserable doing it, and so they postpone their happiness to when they retire, which is not the ideal thing because you spend 80,000 odd hours at work.
Yep.
Which as it turns out is twice the amount of time that you spend with your family.
Wow.
Right, at work. You spend twice the amount of time. So people don't realize it that, your waking time, right? Not your sleep time. But so if you're not really enjoying it, then that's not a very good thing.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah. Anyway, so I'm very lucky in that I do enjoy my work, and not just the research aspect, even the teaching aspect, which is another big component of my work, obviously. So that also gets me in a flow state. But beyond it, I can frequently get into a flow state. I'd say, let's say 50-60% of the time when I'm working out as well.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's the getting to the gym that's often the trouble.
Yeah,
and
it's starting.
It's a starting trouble. And then once I'm in it, I actually like it.
Nice.
Even if it's kind of pushing me, right? And
Well,
so
great.
it's like the weird thing where you're actually kind of like, it's painful and yet you're enjoying it.
I feel the same way sometimes. Like yesterday, I was doing deadlifts as part of my workout, and I was doing it like probably about at my current limit, or like maybe a little bit under. I could probably like push it up a little more. 2 plates, so like that plus the bar is like 225 pounds, and
That's a lot.
Yeah, I've worked out a lot, and I got like big old calluses on my hands now, especially from yesterday, and it was just like it was hard, but I did it without stopping, and I was like, wow, like it also makes you feel really accomplished.
Yeah,
too.
exactly.
Like,
right.
whoa,
That's
I just lifted that. It feels nice.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Are you working on anything? Do you want to share some whatever you're doing with the people or the books, or like I don't know, whatever you want to share? You want to do shout outs?
Sure, yeah. That way. Like a shout out, I don't know if I have anything. I guess, we have already talked about my online courses and things like that
Sure.
People want to check out, they can. Of course, my book is available on Amazon if they want to
If you're so smart, why aren't you happy?
Exactly, right? That's the title. In terms of what I'm working on right now, nothing that's kind of like commercial like that.
Sure.
But I'm
something
working
about men and women, right? And the sensitivity in old age.
Yeah, so that's a project that we just started, a PhD student of mine and I, that kind of I think is an interesting phenomenon where I don't know if this is true in your life, that you look at your say father, right, and he started out perhaps being strict and disciplinarian and so on. May not have been the case with you, but a lot of times they're like that. And then as they get older, they become more sensitive and a little bit more compassionate, and also cry a lot more. Okay, so
maybe it has to do with testosterone, because I know testosterone goes down in older age.
Yeah,
maybe, I don't know.
yeah,
I'm sure you'll find that out.
That is true, that testosterone does go down. With women, it seems like if anything, it's the opposite. They get a little more kind of strong, if I don't know if that's the right word to use, but
stoic maybe.
Yeah, a little more stoic and a little less prone to kind of emotional outbursts. And by outbursts, I don't mean anger and things like that. More on the kind of sensitive side, right, of things. So, for example, I think one of the things that we're looking at is, do men cry more for movies, that are moving and touching when they get older?
Interesting.
Yeah.
I've always cried for touching movies, although I actually cry a lot less now, but I still do sometimes. Like at the end of, it's making me tear up now. At the end of American Sniper. I don't know if you've seen that movie.
No, I don't know. Is it with Bradley Cooper?
That's one with Bradley Cooper.
Okay, so he comes back and he has like issues.
There's a spoiler thing at the end. It's a true story. There's a tragedy. I don't want to give too much.
Okay.
I don't want to give a spoiler because it was, it was kind of shocking. It was like kind of out of the blue, but it was a true story. And then like at the end, I guess if you like, he dies obviously, but the way he dies is like kind of shocking and kind of like just tragic. And at the end of like through the credits, there was an actual memorial when they took for the funeral, because he's buried in Texas State Cemetery, which is right here in Austin, but his hometown somewhere in East Texas. And so they had a memorial where they the procession with like the hearse or whatever, they brought him from that hometown all the way to Austin to bury him, and there are like a bunch of people on overpasses, like the actual photos and like videos of him, and I was like tearing up. I was like, wow, this is like really, really like touching and tragic at the same time. So like, that's interesting that like crying, I think, is definitely an emotional thing, but I think even a lot of very masculine, strong men also cry at some things. And maybe it's just less things, or maybe it's more specific things.
Yeah. So what we're looking at here is there just a kind of a trend towards crying a little bit more for the same things, or crying for more extra things that you didn't used to tear up for? Maybe just observing for example, a grandson being born.
Yeah.
When your own son was born, maybe you didn't really think it was that special, or you certainly didn't tear up. But now that you have a grandchild, just thinking about this miraculous thing of a life being generated or born, does it make you tear up? And in particular, we're looking at the contrast between how it is for women on this emotional journey over life, and contrasting that with how it's for men. And it's very early days, honestly, and so we'll see what the data tell us. But that's one of the projects we are working on.
So is it like you just like, hey, person, just note the times that you cried and what happened, or like how is that going to be set up?
Okay, so there's different ways to look at it, right? One thing that we could do is just ask people directly, do you cry more often now than say when you were half your age? Okay, so we have done that, and we did find some evidence consistent with our theory. Men more than women say yes. Or we could actually show them touching videos and see if in fact men are more prone to kind of being emotionally moved by those videos than are women, particularly when they're older men as opposed to younger men. And that too, we have some preliminary evidence that's consistent with it. So things like that.
What about, like, are you looking for, because one thing I would think about, I'm not a researcher, I really probably already thought about this, but like, if, like, there's definitely a stigma one way more than the other, so maybe like self-reporting wouldn't be super reliable. Is there like an objective way you could see if they're tearing up, like put an electrode on their tear duct or something?
Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, the fact, what you allude to here is actually very interesting. And I have a paper from very early, like 2002 or 3, in which we examine how there is this kind of stereotype that men more than women aspire to, which is being kind of strong emotionally, not
I definitely
showing.
aspire to that, yeah.
Yeah, okay, you do, okay.
To an extent.
Yeah, sure.
Not 100%, but yeah, to an extent.
And you're young enough that it's particularly true for younger men that they want to be like that, and maybe particularly especially true in like cultures like Texas, it's like macho man, strong silent type. So what that would suggest then is that the results, if anything, would go against what we predict, because we're predicting men are going to claim that they're the ones who are more emotional in our studies, and if men don't like admitting to it, then we should find that we don't have any support for our hypothesis. But in fact, what we find is that men are willing to admit, and even if they're underreporting, it means that the phenomenon is even more pronounced in the real world than what we are seeing in this data.
That makes sense.
But nevertheless, I do agree with you that the more objective way to kind of get at this would be to have like other kinds of measurements when they're least suspecting, for example, or we tell them that we are wanting you to look at ads and tell us what are the chances you'll buy the product, and so they're completely unwitting to the real purpose of the study. And then we have a camera trained on them, and we tell them that that's just to kind of register which parts of the screen you're looking at or something like that, some cover story basically we call it. But then see if in fact they are more likely to tear up, right? I don't think you need to have these kind of intrusive instruments like a tear duct calculator or whatever.
Just randomly said that.
No, I know, but it's good. Yeah, you're thinking along the right lines, I would say.
Because you don't need an assistant, do you? You don't need an assistant, do you?
It doesn't involve any art and stuff, so.
Sure, okay.
Be careful what you volunteer for.
That's fascinating, man. Well, I want to be cognizant of your time. It is 11:08, so I want to thank you a bunch for coming.
Thank you. Really enjoyed it again, even more so than last time, I would say.
I'm glad. I'm happy with the setup, and I like decided. One thing I changed this time was I decided to ask questions that I'm fascinated by, rather than just kind of randomly spout questions at you. I wasn't as good at interviewing, but it's just I've had more practice. So.
Good, and it shows.
Thanks.
I think this is another dimension on which you're talented. Now, if you can just marry those two, right? Art and interviewing, you can create a whole new field that didn't used to exist.
I'm gonna have to turn that over.
Do you have any outro music right now?
Nope. Cool. It's just silent.